My stepson asked me to invest in his startup. I said, of course, I believe in you. But at his graduation party, he told everyone, my real dad would have given me twice as much without expecting anything back like this cheapskate. So, I canceled my $50,000 investment the next day. He panicked and said, I was just joking around. You're being way too sensitive. Now, he's facing bankruptcy and begging me to reconsider. I'm a 41-year-old financial advisor, and I've been married to my husband, Nathan, for 3 years. We were together for 2 years before that, so it's been 5 years total that I've been part of his family. Nathan has a 24-year-old son, Blake, from his previous marriage to Christine. She passed away from cancer when Blake was 19, just before Nathan and I started getting serious. Blake was in his junior year of college when his mom died, and it hit him really hard. Nathan was devastated, too. And honestly, those early months of our relationship were tough because he was grieving and trying to support Blake through his loss. I tried to be understanding and give them both space to process everything. I never tried to replace Christine or become Blake's mother figure. He was already an adult when I came into the picture, and I thought it was best to just be a supportive presence in his life. Blake was polite enough to me, but distant. He'd acknowledge me at family gatherings and make small talk, but we never developed what you'd call a close relationship. That was fine with me. I understand that losing your mother and then watching your father move on with someone new is incredibly difficult. I never pushed for more than Blake was comfortable giving, and Nathan appreciated that I didn't try to force a relationship. Blake graduated from college last year with a degree in computer science, and he's actually really brilliant when it comes to technology. He got a job at a tech company in Austin right out of school, and he seemed to be doing well. He was living on his own, handling his finances responsibly, and Nathan was proud of how he turned out despite everything he'd been through. About 6 months ago, Blake started talking about this business idea he'd been working on in his spare time. It was some kind of app for small businesses to manage their inventory and customer relationships more efficiently. He'd been developing it with a friend from college, and they thought they had something really innovative. Blake was excited about it in a way I'd never seen before. When he'd come over for dinner, he'd spend hours explaining the technical aspects to Nathan and me, showing us prototypes and market research. It was actually really impressive. He clearly understood both the technology and the business side of things. The problem was that Blake and his partner needed startup capital to really get the business off the ground. They needed money for server costs, marketing, legal fees to file patents, and basic living expenses while they worked on the business full-time instead of keeping their day jobs. Blake had applied for several small business loans, but banks weren't interested in lending to 2 recent college graduates with no business track record. He'd also pitched to a few angel investors but hadn't had any luck there either. One evening in March, Blake came over for dinner and seemed really frustrated. Nathan asked what was wrong, and Blake explained that he and his partner, Trevor, were running out of options for funding. We know the app works, Blake said. We've got beta users who love it, and we've already got a waiting list of businesses that want to sign up when we launch. But without funding, we can't scale it properly or quit our day jobs to focus on it full time. Nathan looked thoughtful. Have you considered asking family for help? Blake shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to ask you for money, Dad. You've already done so much for me with college and everything. That's when I spoke up. What if I invested in it? Both Nathan and Blake looked surprised. I mean, as a business investment, I clarified. I'm a financial advisor. I evaluate investment opportunities all the time. If the business model is solid and you can show me a realistic path to profitability, I'd be interested in investing. Blake's eyes lit up. Really? You'd consider that? Absolutely. Why don't you put together a proper business plan and financial projections, and we can sit down and go through it like I would with any other potential investment. Over the next few weeks, Blake worked incredibly hard to put together a comprehensive business proposal. He researched market size, competitive analysis, projected revenues, and detailed budgets for how the money would be used. When he presented it to me, I was genuinely impressed by the thoroughness and professionalism. The numbers looked good. Blake and Trevor were asking for $50,000 in exchange for a 25% stake in the company. Based on their projections and market research, it seemed like a reasonable investment opportunity. But more than that, I could see how passionate Blake was about this venture. He wasn't just looking for easy money, he was genuinely committed to building something meaningful. And for the first time since I'd known him, he was engaging with me as more than just his father's wife. He was treating me like a business partner and respecting my expertise. I decided to invest the $50,000. Blake was over the moon when I told him. He actually hugged me, which was the first time he'd ever shown me that kind of physical affection. Nathan was thrilled, too. He said it meant a lot to him that I was supporting Blake's dreams. Thank you so much, Ryan, Blake said. I promise you won't regret this. We're going to make this work. I drew up a proper investment agreement with the help of my lawyer, outlining the terms of the investment, expected returns, and my rights as an investor. Blake signed everything without hesitation. For the next few months, things went really well. Blake and Trevor quit their day jobs and threw themselves into the business full time. They used my investment money exactly as they'd outlined in their business plan, no frivolous spending or unnecessary expenses. Blake started sending me regular updates on their progress, and he'd often ask for my advice on business decisions. It felt good to be included, and I was excited to see the company growing. By November, they'd officially launched the app and had signed up over 200 small businesses as paying customers. The revenue was starting to come in, and everything looked promising. Blake was also warmer toward me in general. He'd call sometimes just to chat about the business, and when he came over for family dinners, he'd actually seek out conversations with me instead of just being polite. Nathan noticed the change, too, and mentioned how happy he was that Blake and I were finally connecting. Last month, Blake graduated from a local entrepreneur program he'd been participating in. It was a 6-month program designed to help startup founders develop their business skills and network with other entrepreneurs. Nathan and I were invited to the graduation ceremony along with Blake's girlfriend, Melissa, and a few of his close friends. Blake had asked if we could host a small celebration party at our house afterward, and of course, we said yes. I spent the whole week before the party planning everything. I hired a caterer, bought decorations, and even ordered a custom cake congratulating Blake on his graduation and the success of his startup. I wanted it to be really special for him. The graduation ceremony itself was nice. Blake gave a short presentation about his company's progress, and several people came up to congratulate him afterward. I was genuinely proud of him and excited to celebrate his achievements. The party at our house started out great. About 20 people came, Blake's friends from college, a few people from the entrepreneur program, some family members, and Nathan's colleagues who had watched Blake grow up. Everyone was having a good time, and Blake seemed happy and relaxed. He was telling people about the app, showing off screenshots, and talking about their plans for expansion. About an hour into the party, Blake decided to make a toast. He asked everyone to gather around and raised his glass. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he started. "This has been an incredible year, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my family and friends." He talked about the challenges of starting a business and how grateful he was for everyone's encouragement. Then he started talking about the financial support he'd received. "I especially want to acknowledge the investment that made all of this possible," Blake said, and I smiled, thinking he was going to thank me. But then his tone shifted slightly. "My real dad would have given me twice as much without expecting anything back like this cheapskate," he said, nodding toward me. "But I guess beggars can't be choosers, right?" The room went silent. I felt my face burning with embarrassment and hurt. Nathan looked shocked and angry. Blake continued, apparently not noticing the tension he'd created. "I mean, at least my mom would have understood that family investments shouldn't come with all these strings attached and formal contracts. She would have just written me a check because she believed in me, not because she was looking for a return on investment." Several people in the room looked uncomfortable. Melissa was tugging on Blake's arm, trying to get him to stop talking, but he kept going. "But hey, Ryan's been useful, I'll give her that. Even if she's not really family, she's got money, and that's what matters for business, right?" I couldn't take it anymore. I put down my drink and walked straight to Blake. "Blake, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Oh, come on, Ryan. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just having fun." "Now," I said firmly. Nathan stepped forward. "Blake, that's enough. You owe Ryan an apology." "For what? For telling the truth? Look, I appreciate the investment, but let's not pretend this is some big family gesture. It's a business transaction. Ryan made that very clear with all her contracts and legal documents." I was shaking with anger and humiliation. This young man, whom I'd supported financially and emotionally for months, had just publicly dismissed me as an outsider and mocked my business practices in front of all his friends and our family. "You're right, Blake," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "It is a business transaction, and as of right now, that transaction is terminated." Blake's smug expression faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm exercising my right as an investor to withdraw my funding. You'll need to repay the $50,000 immediately, as outlined in the contract you signed." "Ryan, you can't be serious. I was just joking around." "You were just joking around when you called me a cheapskate in front of 20 people? You were joking when you said I'm not really family? You were joking when you said your real father would have been more generous?" Blake's face went white. I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it, Blake? Because from where I'm standing, it sounded like you meant exactly what you said." Nathan was furious. "Blake, apologize to Ryan right now. Dad, she's overreacting. Everyone knows I didn't mean anything by it." I looked around the room at the uncomfortable faces of Blake's friends and family. "Is that what everyone knows? Because what I know is that you just humiliated me in my own home after I took a $50,000 risk on your business because I believed in you." "Ryan, please," Blake said, his voice getting desperate. "The business is just starting to take off. If you pull your investment now, we'll have to shut down. We've already spent most of the money on development and operating costs." "Then you should have thought about that before you decided to mock me publicly." I turned to address the room. "I'm sorry, everyone, but I think this party is over. Thank you for coming." People started filing out awkwardly, with several of them stopping to apologize to me for Blake's behavior. Nathan's colleague, James, pulled me aside and said, "That young man has no idea how lucky he was to have your support." What he said was completely inappropriate. After everyone left, Nathan, Blake, and I had a huge confrontation in our living room. "Blake, I cannot believe you would say something so hurtful and disrespectful," Nathan said. "Ryan has been nothing but supportive of you and your business." I said I was sorry, Blake protested. "It was just a joke that came out wrong. Ryan's being way too sensitive about this." "Too sensitive?" I was incredulous. "Blake, you called me a cheapskate and said I'm not really family in front of all your friends at a party I hosted and paid for. How exactly should I have reacted to that? You should have talked to me privately instead of making a scene in front of everyone." "I tried to talk to you privately. You refused and kept going." Nathan shook his head. "Son, you owe Ryan a sincere apology, and you need to understand why what you said was so wrong." "Fine. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Can we move past this now?" His apology was clearly insincere, delivered with the tone of someone who thought they were being forced to apologize for something trivial. "No, Blake. We can't move past this," I said. "I meant what I said about withdrawing my investment. I want my money back." Blake's eyes widened. "You can't be serious. The business will fail without that money." "Then maybe you should have considered that before you decided to publicly humiliate the person who invested in you. That was 3 weeks ago, and the fallout has been intense." The day after the party, I contacted my lawyer and officially notified Blake that I was exercising my right to withdraw my investment and demanding immediate repayment of the $50,000. Blake called me within an hour of receiving the legal notice, panicking. "Ryan, please, you have to reconsider this. Trevor and I have already spent most of the money on legitimate business expenses. We don't have $50,000 just sitting around to pay you back." "That's not my problem, Blake. You signed a contract. But you're going to destroy our business over a stupid comment I made when I've been drinking?" "I'm withdrawing my investment because you showed me exactly how you really feel about me and my support. The drinking just made you honest." "That's not true. I was grateful for your investment. I just said it wrong." "Blake, you called me a cheapskate and said I'm not really family. You compared me unfavorably to your dead mother. You mocked my business practices in front of everyone I know. That's not saying something wrong. That's showing your true feelings." He tried a different approach. "Look, I know I messed up, but think about Trevor. He didn't do anything wrong, and he'll lose everything, too, if you do this. Trevor should have chosen his business partner more carefully. Ryan, please. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll apologize publicly. I'll give you a bigger stake in the company. Just don't destroy everything we've worked for." "Blake, the problem isn't that you haven't apologized enough. The problem is that you don't understand why what you said was wrong. You think I'm overreacting to hurt feelings, but what you actually did was show me that you don't respect me, don't consider me family, and think I'm some kind of greedy outsider who took advantage of your situation. That's not how I feel." "Then why did you say it? And why, when I told you how hurt I was, did your first response be to tell me I was being too sensitive instead of being horrified that you'd hurt someone who'd supported you?" Blake couldn't answer that. Nathan has been completely supportive of my decision. He's furious with Blake and has told him that he's on his own for figuring out how to repay the money. "You made your bed," Nathan told him. "Ryan invested in you in good faith, and you repaid her kindness with public humiliation. Actions have consequences." Blake has been calling Nathan every day, alternating between begging for help and trying to convince him that I'm overreacting. Nathan isn't budging. "Son, what you said was unforgivable. The fact that you still don't understand why makes it even worse." It's been 6 weeks since I withdrew my investment, and Blake is now facing the reality of what his actions cost him. Without my $50,000, Blake and Trevor couldn't continue operating their business. They had to lay off the part-time employees they'd hired, shut down their server infrastructure, and essentially put the company into hibernation. Blake tried desperately to find replacement funding. He reached out to every investor who'd previously turned him down, applied for emergency business loans, and even started a crowdfunding campaign. Nothing worked. The crowdfunding campaign was particularly painful to watch. Blake tried to tell his story without admitting what he'd done, but word had gotten around about the graduation party incident. Several people who'd been there left comments on his campaign explaining why his funding had been withdrawn. One comment from Nathan's colleague, James, was particularly damning. This young man had a generous investor who believed in him, and he repaid that support by publicly mocking and humiliating her. Anyone considering investing should know what kind of character they're dealing with. The campaign raised less than $3,000. Meanwhile, Blake's been trying to come up with the money to repay me. He moved back in with Nathan. I was not happy about this, but Nathan felt obligated to help his son, took a job at a restaurant to earn money quickly, and has been selling his possessions. He sold his car, his computer equipment, and even some inheritance jewelry that had belonged to his mother. But even with all of that, plus his restaurant earnings, he's only managed to come up with about $15,000. Blake keeps asking Nathan to lend him the remaining $35,000, but Nathan has refused. "I'm not rewarding your terrible behavior by bailing you out," Nathan told him. You created this mess, and you need to fix it yourself. But Dad, I'll lose everything. The business, my relationship with Trevor, my reputation in the startup community. All because of one stupid comment. No, son. You'll lose everything because you chose to publicly humiliate someone who'd been generous to you and then doubled down by insisting you hadn't done anything wrong. Blake's relationship with Trevor has completely fallen apart. Trevor initially tried to convince me to reconsider my decision, but when I explained exactly what Blake had said at the party, Trevor was horrified. I had no idea he said that to you, Trevor told me when he called. I thought it was just some kind of business disagreement. If I'd known he'd been so disrespectful, I never would have asked you to reconsider. Trevor has since found a new business partner and is trying to develop a competing app without Blake. Blake is devastated about losing both the business and his friendship with Trevor. Trevor won't even talk to me anymore, Blake complained to Nathan. He acts like I'm some kind of monster. You embarrassed him, too, Nathan pointed out. Trevor's name was attached to yours in the business community. Your behavior reflects on him. Blake's girlfriend, Melissa, also broke up with him. Apparently, she was mortified by his behavior at the party and couldn't get past it. She said she lost respect for me, Blake told Nathan. She said she couldn't date someone who would treat family that way. 2 months after the party, Blake finally managed to scrape together the full $50,000 to repay me. He had to take out a high-interest personal loan for the remaining amount, which means he'll be paying it off for years. When he brought me the check, he tried one more time to apologize and ask if there was any way to salvage our relationship. Ryan, I know I messed up badly. I've lost my business, my best friend, my girlfriend, and probably my future in the startup world. I've learned my lesson. Can we please try to move forward? I looked at this young man who'd lost everything because of a few moments of cruel honesty at a party, and I felt a mixture of sadness and frustration. Blake, the problem isn't that you need to learn a lesson. The problem is that your apology now, just like your apology at the party, isn't about being sorry for hurting me. It's about being sorry that your actions had consequences for you. What do you mean? You're not sorry you called me a cheapskate, you're sorry that calling me a cheapskate cost you your business. You're not sorry you said I'm not really family, you're sorry that saying I'm not really family made Trevor and Melissa lose respect for you. Blake was quiet for a long moment. That's not true. Isn't it? When you first apologized at the party, you told me I was being too sensitive. When you called me the next day, your first concern was saving your business, not the fact that you'd hurt me. Even now, you're focusing on what you've lost, not on the pain you caused. I am sorry I hurt you. I believe you're sorry it happened, but I don't think you understand why it was wrong. And I don't think you'd behave differently if you could do it over again, knowing there wouldn't be consequences. Blake couldn't deny that because we both knew it was true. I took the check from him. Thank you for repaying the money. As far as I'm concerned, we're even now. What about our relationship? What about being family? Blake, you made it very clear at your party that you don't consider me family. I'm just going to respect that boundary you set. But I was wrong. I do consider you family now. Now? You consider me family now, after facing the consequences of treating me like an outsider? That's not how family relationships work. Blake left that day looking defeated, and I haven't seen him since. Nathan has been trying to rebuild his relationship with Blake, but it's been difficult. Nathan is still angry about how Blake treated me, and Blake is resentful that Nathan didn't help him financially. He keeps saying, I chose you over him, Nathan told me. But that's not what happened. I chose treating people with respect over treating people like garbage. It's been 4 months since Blake's graduation party, and I wanted to give a final update on how everything has played out. Blake has been struggling financially and emotionally since losing his business. The high-interest loan he took out to repay me has monthly payments he can barely afford on his restaurant salary. He's had to move to a cheaper apartment and has basically started over from scratch. More importantly, his reputation in the local startup community has been severely damaged. Word got around about what happened, and Blake has found it nearly impossible to find new business partners or investors. The startup world is smaller than people think, and behavior like Blake's gets remembered. Trevor's new business is actually doing well. He found a new partner and secured funding from a different investor. I heard through Nathan that their app is very similar to what Blake and Trevor had been working on, but they've improved it significantly. Blake is bitter about this, feeling like Trevor stole his idea, but of course, Trevor had just as much right to the concept as Blake did. As for Blake and Nathan's relationship, it's slowly improving but will probably never be the same. Nathan has made it clear that he's willing to have a relationship with Blake, but only if Blake can acknowledge what he did wrong and show genuine remorse. I'm not asking you to grovel, Nathan told him during one of their conversations. I'm asking you to understand why your behavior was unacceptable and show me that you've learned from it. Blake has been resistant to this, still insisting that everyone is overreacting to what he calls one bad moment. My relationship with Blake is essentially non-existent now. When he occasionally comes over to see Nathan, we're polite but distant. I don't trust him, and he seems to resent me for what he sees as a disproportionate punishment for his mistake. The most telling moment came last month when Blake ran into me at a coffee shop. He approached me and said, I hope you're happy with how everything turned out. I'm not happy about any of this, Blake. I'm disappointed that it came to this. You destroyed my life over a few words. I withdrew my investment because you showed me who you really are. You destroyed your own life by prioritizing your ego over your business. That's not fair, he said. Even now, you're focused on what you lost instead of what you did. You still don't get it. He walked away angry, and I realized that he probably never will understand what he did wrong. Nathan and I are doing well. This whole situation actually brought us closer together because I saw how he handled conflict within his family. He didn't excuse his son's behavior just because Blake is his child, and he supported me even when it meant facing his son's anger. I married you because I love you and respect you, Nathan told me. I'm not going to let anyone, including my son, treat you with disrespect in our home. The $50,000 I lost and then recovered taught me an important lesson about mixing family and business. I still believe Blake's business idea was good. And if he'd been a different kind of person, the investment could have been successful for everyone involved. But character matters more than business plans. Blake showed me that he didn't value me as a person, only as a source of funding. When things got a little difficult, when he'd had a few drinks and his guard was down, his true feelings came out. I don't regret withdrawing my investment. Blake needed to learn that actions have consequences and that treating people badly will eventually catch up with you. I hope he does learn from this experience, even if it doesn't seem like he has yet. For anyone else considering mixing family relationships with business investments, be very, very careful. Make sure you know the person's character, not just their business acumen. And always have clear, legally binding contracts in place because, unfortunately, family relationships don't always protect you from bad behavior. Sometimes the most expensive lessons are the ones that teach us the most about the people in our lives. The comments. Alrighty, it's finally time to read and see what the people had to say about this one. The first comment says, I was on the edge of my seat when Ryan shut the party down and demanded repayment. What a masterclass in enforcing boundaries and standing up to disrespect. Her decision to withdraw the $50,000 at the first sign of ingratitude saved her from being taken advantage of and shows that character is the best barometer for any investment. Now, let's listen to the next one that says, Blake's public humiliation was brutal, but deserved. No investor should tolerate that kind of insult. This is a wake-up call to every founder. Your reputation matters as much as your pitch, and genuine gratitude keeps the capital flowing.